stand up and give a standing ovation and welcome All India Rank 3rd Miss Gamini Singla. Kindly give her a big round of applause and please welcome our Vice Chairperson Dr. S.S. Chaudhary sir. Kindly give them a big round of applause. Thank you so much for coming, please. Please be comfortable. Good evening, guys. Good evening. Nice. Hope you all are good. Okay, so firstly, I am really feeling honored to welcome you, Gamini. It's a great pleasure to have you here with us, and I would like to congratulate you on everyone's behalf for securing 3rd rank. Give her a big round of applause, please. Heartiest congratulations to you. You have made us really proud. Yeah. Now, I would like to request our Vice Chairperson, Dr. S.S. Chaudhary sir, to present shield to 3rd rank topper, Ms. Gamini Singla, to honor her. Sir, please. Give her a big round of applause. Thanks to both of you. Thank you so much. Now, without delaying further, I will request Gamini to come and guide our students about answer writing skills and share strategies about how to crack IAS. Right? Please welcome her.
Hello everyone. Very warm good evening to all of you. So, I have interacted with the students earlier also, but I believe that every interaction gives me an opportunity to learn from you because every student brings new type of questions. So it's my pleasure to be here first of all amongst you. And he was telling me that you are mostly the foundation course students, if I'm not wrong, and some of them are planning to appear in 2023 also, and some in 2024. Okay, so first of all, pat yourself on back because now you have taken the decision to appear in this examination. I think to come to this point only, it needs a lot of courage because we know what this examination demands. So let's clap for you guys that you have started this journey. Well begin is half done. So now once you have made the decision, I think you should put your heart and soul into the preparation. My first advice will be never give your first attempt just thinking कि देख लेते हैं करके, because so many of us feel कि examination समझ लेते हैं, just let's go and experience the exam hall. That's just wasting one attempt and it causes a lot of demotivation. Any kind of failure comes with a lot of demotivation irrespective of whatever effort you have put. It doesn't mean that if you're going with less amount of effort, it will be less disheartening. So make this very sure that first or second attempt, it's not impossible to crack. So I've cracked this in my second attempt, learned from my mistakes, and here I am to tell you about what mistakes I made, what you can avoid while you appear in your first exam, right? So let's begin with the strategy a little bit. So I do not think that there's a different strategy for prelims and mains and interview. This process is very, very integrated. You can never think of starting with the prelims preparation, then coming to the mains preparation, and then somewhere down the line we'll think of the interview. You have to keep the 3 stages in mind because unless and until you clear the 3 stages, you will have to come back to square one. So I think that thing is something we should keep in mind when we start. And the second thing is that conceptual clarity is very, very important. We need not rush into things. There's nothing like time कम रह जाएगा, इसको जल्दी कर लेते हैं, सिर्फ रट्टा मार लेते हैं, UPSC तो यही पूछेगा. So let me be very clear, in every stage, what is going to help you is your conceptual clarity and how nicely you have understood that particular topic. So give that a priority, irrespective of the time it consumes to understand something. And there is nothing to be disheartened if it is taking you more time initially. It did take me a lot of time to make newspaper my best friend, and it is fine if it is taking you also. So these apprehensions that we have in mind every time some successful person comes and say that it took me just 40 minutes, it took me just 45 minutes. So do not enter into that comparison mode. It is okay to take 1.5, 2 hours initially, and let the process take its own time. Okay? And then let's come to the basic books. So the basic books are a necessity. Nothing, and I do not think that anything should substitute it also, because the clarity is made when you go through the NCRTs. So most of the times our perception is that if we read the NCRT, the question might not come from it, and it's a wastage of time. So let me tell you that the questions will be formed on the basis of those NCRTs. The foundations will be laid there, and you'll have to work on the top of it. But please do not skip that particular stage. And since you are mostly undergraduates who are in the college, you have a lot of time to give to the NCRTs, to the basic books, understand the concepts well, and then go from there. So, and reading a book from different perspectives also becomes very, very important. First you do the first reading, then you go through the second reading, and then you start revising the thing. So, do not be like कि first reading में ही सब कुछ याद करना है, first reading में सब कुछ समझ आ जाना चाहिए, and never take it for granted that I've read the NCRTs or I've read these books once, I do not need to go back. So the first mistake that I made was that when in 2018 I was in my college years, I had read these NCRTs and the basic books, and I took it for granted that I have read them once, now let's move to something else, and I did not come back. And that too costed me an attempt, because the revisions are very, very important here. So every time we think that we've done a particular book, it doesn't mean that it needs to be packed now. Just go back to those books again and again, and you'll be amazed to know that every single revision that I did find a new point in that particular book. And it's up to you, because your level increases also. Your level of understanding increases. You can correlate with the questions that you're doing in the test series. So keep revising the same material again and again. That's something which is very inevitable, if I can say that. The third thing for the prelims and the mains is obviously attempting a lot of mock papers. And how do they become important? It's not only about the questions that are there in the mock papers, it's also about when you're attempting, you understand where are you standing? How far is your revision helping you? How far are you able to understand the book or the material better? Because when you sit in the exam hall, you know how your performance is aligned to the demand of the preparation too. So do not take mocks as something कि बस questions को रट्टा लगा लेते हैं, ये question आ गया तो बहुत सही है. It doesn't work that way. So these are some of the myths that are associated. कि अगर 100 mock papers कर दिए तो prelims guaranteed है, अगर 20 किए तो नहीं guaranteed है. There's no one number. Do not go behind the quantity. I think the quality should matter a lot, and then the quantity should add to the quality quality of work that you are doing. For the prelims, I have already told you that do a lot of questions. Start seeing the previous year questions. It's the best time, and previous year questions are not something that needs to be seen only once or twice. They are like that one magic wand that UPSC has given us, that this is the kind of preparation we are looking at. So at every stage it becomes very important to go back to the same questions. When we start, when we do the first reading, when we revise, when we give the mock papers, these previous year questions should run in the background in your mind. So whenever I even remember in the last 2-3 days before the exam, I just went through the history NCRTs again. And in the ancient history, NCRTs become very important. And just because I had read the previous year questions so well, I could relate everything that was given in the book to the question that was asked. And when you reach that kind of preparation where you remember that this type of question came and this is mentioned here, you know what to study and how to study a book better too. So this is how you should take help of the previous year questions, rather than just sitting and cramming them in the last days of the preparation. So that becomes very, very important too. Today we are mainly here to discuss about the answer writing aspect. So we'll touch that more, and we'll explain that in a little bit of detail to best of my capacity. So let's come to the mains, because mains is the main exam that is going to get you through. Prelims is becoming very dicey, it's very crucial, but at the end of the day, your marks in mains and interview are going to bring you to the list. So mains is one thing which requires a very analytical approach to things. And if I say prelims require conceptual clarity too, but mains requires conceptual clarity raised to the power 100, if you could understand it in that sense. So if you do not understand anything, you cannot write an answer on it. And to write an answer, you cannot have one particular thing कि चलो ये पढ़ लिया या ये book पढ़ ली, then it's done. और ये subject है तो उतना ही लिखना है. Mains is a lot about correlating. So it's about the correlation between the subjects, correlation between the current affairs and the static portion that you're reading. And how that comes is when you've read a lot before. You cannot cram mains answer. Even if I give you the ideal answer right now, and if a question is just a little bit tweaked, I do not think that we'll be able to solve them because the demand of the question becomes very, very important in the mains. So the thing here is that read the newspapers very, very carefully, take time to understand things, Google things a lot. So sometimes books might not tell you exactly the same thing that is going to be asked in the paper. So knowing and being inquisitive helps a lot in that sense. For example, let's take a small example of from the prelims perspective also and from the mains also this will help. If we see a news that this species has been found in this particular national park. So the news is that this species has been found in this national park. So the person who wants to cram will cram this much. But this is not something that UPSC is demanding. This everybody knows out there. So if you talk to a person who is not preparing for UPSC, I think he or she might also know that this is something which is happening. So now our responsibility is to dig a little deep. And how do we dig a little deep is knowing about that national park. And then again correlating with the previous year questions, that what kind of questions are they putting on the national parks? Are they wondering about the locations more, or the map work more, or the kind of rivers that are passing through those national parks? So that helps you to know to what depth you need to study the things. So just Google it, just see it on the map, note down whatever important you feel as per the previous year questions, as per the mock test, and then I think that topic is done and dusted for you. Magazines will also cover, but everything cannot be covered in one source. So you will have to apply your mind a lot. So do not fear of applying your own common sense, that this was said and I have to stick to that. Next year, what common sense you apply will become a strategy. So let's make it very clear, right? So come out with your own strategies as per your comforts too, what you feel comfortable with. And in mains, I did a lot of note making also, because in the end, you cannot comprehend everything so easily because the time is very short, only 2.5 months. For that, if you have your notes ready, it becomes very easy. But since you are appearing in the, you're still in the graduation years, I'll suggest do not go behind the notes right now. Do not start picking the newspapers and just filling your notebooks. I did that in the 3rd and 4th year and those notebooks were never touched again. So do not make this a mistake. Abhi, what you do is read a lot, understand the concepts a lot, just Google a lot, know about the different perspectives. You can even listen to some debates on the YouTubes that are available, on the news media. हमारे टाइम पे RS TV होता था, अब संसद TV कर दिया है, तो I used to listen to those debates. Just broaden your knowledge. Just try to grab knowledge to know कि क्या चल रहा है और उसके क्या perspectives हैं. Then when you are into the process, 8-9 months before the mains or when 1 year is left for you to give the exam, then you become a little more conscious and then you can start with the note making. And one thing I want to tell you first of all is that, another thing I want to tell you is that there are n number of strategies to clear this exam. Do not copy my strategy. I'm telling in the middle only because I don't want you people to follow whatever I did. It's just one of those ways. If it is suiting you well and good, otherwise you can tweak it. So do not take anyone's, whatever everybody is saying, कि हमें यही करना है या यही करने से exam निकलता है. It's just one of the ways to get at that position. So if you find comfortable, do it. Otherwise, you should find your own strategy. So where was I? Let me ask others if you are listening very well or not. What we were discussing before this thing, before I made this disclaimer. Note making, right? सुन रहे हैं. They're attentive enough. Yeah, so the note making portion, I shifted to note making after I failed my first prelims. So my journey was that in 2019, I started with the wholehearted preparation. In 2018, in the last year of college, I did read the NCRTs and the basic books. 2019 onwards, I started preparing and I did my optional subject for like 4 or 5 months. And then December se lekar May tak, I was preparing for the prelims. But then the prelims got postponed. It was in October. So that just got elongated. And in October, I failed the prelims with like 26 marks ka margin. So another message I have for you is, doesn't matter how badly you fail. It's okay to fail even by 26-30 margins, and then I got rank 3 in just the second attempt. So if that time I would have believed it would take me, I don't know how many years to get to this position, it doesn't matter. It's just that how good you reflect on your failures. So note making I started after the prelims I failed because I realized that I was not very well suited to write the mains. Even if I had made to the prelims, I think mains would have been really tough for me. So how I made the notes was that mains notes were majorly made from the newspapers. So if I read an article or if I am reading the editorial pages, so I used to know I had different copies for GS 1, 2, 3, 4 and my optional subject. So any article that came, so suppose there's an article in Governor one day, I'll just note down in the GS2, in the index I'll give Governor, Speaker, whatever the article is upon, I'll go there and I'll try to make my notes in the form of an answer. And what do I mean by in the form of an answer is that giving an introduction, I'm not just writing the introduction there but leaving the space for it कि introduction में we can mention the article number or something. And अगर उस article में they've given me points कि sociologically या economically या कुछ भी इस तरह से किसी भी article में mentioned है, so I'll write that in the body and in the conclusion I'll write the suggestions. So we were discussing about the governor's role. So it is mostly around, it will mostly be around the current affair that is associated with the governor's role. कि state में ये हुआ या ये हुआ. But उसके बाद the issues which are there, which they relate to the static portion, that in the governor's role, these are some of the things or these are some of the challenges that we need to cope up with. So what challenges I used to write 3 or 4 points में. If there are any suggestions by the editor, I would write the suggestions in the suggestions box. So in a kind, I had a very small answer ready. So if there's a question on the governor, I'll just revise those particular notes and I'll have my material ready. So like this from the newspaper itself, you can make your notes ready, right? And now let's shift to the GS2 strategy. I've secured 129 marks this year in the GS paper 2, General Studies paper 2. So let's start from the beginning first. That is the syllabus that is given. So in mains, they've made the work really easy because everything has been written down by them, that whatever is going to be asked is going to be from these many topics only. In prelims, the syllabus is not very concise or has not been mentioned like that way. But in mains, that is there. So if you're ignoring the syllabus, I think you're making a mistake. So in the mains portion, the syllabus also, in each line, there are so many subtopics. Do not just mark this thing कि इतना चीज़ लक्ष्मीकांत में हो जाएगा या फिर ये वाली. Go read the entire line and you'll know that there are so many subtopics. और फिर जब उनमें से question आता, then we're like out of syllabus question पूछ लिया, पता नहीं किस तरह का वो question पूछ लिया. So if you see GS2 में it's written कि constitutions of other countries and India's, that's a syllabus का line. But we tend to miss these type of syllabus topics. So the only message I'm trying to give here is कि syllabus को इतने detail में पढ़ के जाओ कि कुछ भी news में उसके related मिल रहा है, then you shouldn't be missing it. Sometimes we see the syllabus last में, we keep reading everything and then we like अरे इस पे तो है ही नहीं हमारे पास material. So it's better to see the syllabus first, then read the books in the newspapers from the same perspective and then analyze and correlate कि अच्छा ये syllabus में यहाँ पे I can fit. For example, in GS2 we have a topic called NGOs also. तो mostly what we do is कि NGOs के बारे में सबको पता है. अगर हम वही लिख के आएंगे जो सबको पता है, तो how is it differentiating us from a common man? If I ask anybody randomly, any educated man, he knows what NGOs are doing. So we need to put a little more effort to dig a little deeper. So whenever a news comes or whenever any committee comes which is giving the recommendations for the NGOs, that becomes something which will fetch you extra marks. That is something you need to keep in mind. In prelims, you are reading 100 committees or say 50 committees and their recommendations. But writing those committees at the right stage in the mains is something which you'll learn with practice and which I believe gives you a lot of marks also, because that's how you can show your creativity. It is going to be something different from the model answer or from what everybody is writing, because you've not copied it from somewhere. You've just correlated the news in the best possible manner you felt that it could be fit there. In the GS2 specifically, I think what fetched me marks was that in the introduction, I tried memorizing the article numbers. So if there is something in the Supreme Court, I'll start with the article number, that this article number deals with this particular provision, this particular constitutional office, or if it's on like National Human Rights Commission or any of the statutory bodies are there, I'll mention the act and I'll start the introduction with a very basic introduction कि इस act में ये चीज़ explain क्यों हुई है. That forms your introductory part. Now let's come to the other part, जो तुम्हारा body होती है main. And उसमें भी body में भी you need not write from one perspective. This is a mistake that we make. We tend to explain one perspective a lot. For example, अगर हम political aspect में घुस गए हैं तो हम उसको explain करते रहेंगे. But I think in mains what makes a lot of difference is that you diversify your points. And what I mean by diversification is कि एक ही पर्टिकुलर चीज़ को पॉलिटिकली एक्सप्लेन करो, सोशली एक्सप्लेन करो, उसका इन्वायरमेंटल एंगल पॉसिबल है तो वो एक्सप्लेन करो, उसका एथिकल एंगल पॉसिबल है तो वो एक्सप्लेन करो, ताकि ये दिखे कि यू हैव डाइवर्स नॉलेज एंड यू नो हाउ टू इंटरकनेक्ट. तो एज वी वर डिस्कसिंग अबाउट द GS2 ओनली, तो जैसे क्रिमिनल जस्टिस सिस्टम है, यू ऑल नो अबाउट द बेसिक्स अबाउट द क्रिमिनल जस्टिस सिस्टम व्हाट आई एम टॉकिंग, जस्ट द बेसिक्स इफ यू रेड द NCERTs वंस. नहीं पता? चलो तो let me explain you, कोई बात नहीं. Yeah, तो criminal justice system में we have four kind of wings that we can say. Police comes, judiciary comes, prisons, and then we have the victim-oriented system. So criminal justice system is basically all stages of law enforcement, starting from prevention of the crime. Second comes when the crime has been done, then ensuring proper justice is given to the victim. And third is that after the proper legal aid, we compensate the victim also. So if we see, a lot of institutions are involved in the criminal justice system itself. One is, as I said, judiciary, police first, judiciary, prisons, then the victim. Now, even inside these layers, we can explain them from different angles. For example, let's discuss about the police ka role. The first thing that comes in our mind when we discuss about the issues and the challenges related to the functioning of the police is, what is it? Anyone can tell me? The first thing that comes in the mind of even a normal person who is not preparing for UPSC. FIR is there, but the challenge is there. What is the challenge with respect to the working of the police? Investigation they do, but what is the challenge? Corruption, right. Corruption is one of that. Political pressure is one of that. Very well said. So these are the issues that are there and we need to quote them also. But to get that extra edge, I also used to write about the sociological aspect of the functioning of the police, which can be lack of gender sensitivity, which could also be that the working hours are so high, which could be numerically also stated that the ratio of the police persons to the general public is very less. So we have very less police officials and the general public is very high. So if you just go there and write political pressure and corruption, that any and everybody is talking about these days. Any normal citizen also knows. But you being a UPSC aspirant, they want to know the depth of your understanding of the issues and the challenges involved, which is not only from the side of the police, but there are some other issues involved also. And to substantiate my point, I used to quote a report. For example, if I mention that the police officials are working, their working hours are really high, they are not getting the leaves on time sometimes, then I'll quote the report that says that. You need not remember the exact data of the report, just the name of the report will suffice. So that shows that you have read the report, that shows you can correlate the report. And if you have cleared prelims, it means you have read these reports, you know about them. but the application part is sometimes missing, and which is something which nobody can tell us how to do. This only we can do applying our own minds. Then there's gender sensitivity. I think that issue is also there, but again, correlation. There are so many case studies, so many examples where we can say that the gender sensitivity is a little bit missing. Fourth thing that we can add to it is the kind of torture that is happening with the inmates, the jail inmates. That shows your sensitivity towards the jail inmates also, that you are not only talking from the perspective of police or the victim, but also from the person who is the convict. So the torture wala angle also should be put. So I hope I'm able to clarify that what I mean by diversifying your answers. It's about explaining it, the same thing from different angles, and that comes when you are well versed with everything. So GS1 mein what you have read, you put in GS2. You put the economical angle too. You tell them that there's lack of funding also, and for that's also one of the reasons that the working is a little bit challenging. So you're using the knowledge of GS3. In GS4 ka knowledge also you can use by just talking about the accountability. Lack of accountability of the officials at the higher level, because there is no grievance redressal mechanism, or there is no proper mechanism to report the things. So I hope these things are very basic, because you are just starting with the preparation. I hope you are able to understand. This is not something rocket science or जो हमने नहीं पढ़ा है. Very very simple things, बस उनको डालना सही जगह पे कि कैसे कैसे उसको put किया जाए उस particular question में. Similarly, the second aspect of the criminal justice system will be judiciary. In judiciary again, make 5 or 6 points ready with the functioning of the judiciary. What is right? What are the challenges? What are your suggestions? What is the government doing? And then your answer finishes up with a positive conclusion. So in judiciary, for example, we can diversify the points like pendency is an issue, number 1. Number 2, vacancies are an issue. Number 3, delays in the judgments, which is related to these 2-3 points. Now, having talked about all these things, add another perspective also. The safety of the judges also is an issue nowadays. So when I was preparing, there was a news of a judge from a particular state being shot. So now that news is very simple. Nobody is going to tell you कि इसको कहाँ पे आप put कर सकते हो. That's only your innovation. Then there was a question in the judiciary. I used to put that whenever there was a question in the mock test, कि safety of the judges is also an issue. So that fetches you an extra at least 0.5 mark ही दे दे आपको. It will make a lot of difference in the entire list. So इस तरह के innovative चीजें आप correlate करके पढ़ेंगे तो that will be very helpful. Prisons के case में under trials, everybody knows that there are a lot of under trials. So what I did was that instead of just writing that there are a lot of under trials, I used to quote the exact number 67% or whatever it was, because it's very easy. अब इसको अगर आप बोलोगे कि इतना data memorize करना है, I don't think it's a lot of data. It's a very simple fact, but उसको use कर दो सही जगह पे, bracket में Indian Justice Report 2020 लिख दिया. I think that fetches you an extra 0.25 or 0.5 marks. तो कोई भी चीज़ पढ़ो, ये सोच के पढ़ो कि मेंस के कौन से सिलेबस में उसको कहाँ फिट कर सकते हो. This is something which you should start doing from now onwards, because this is nothing like कि आप उसको थोड़ी देर में सीख लेंगे. ये habit है, धीरे धीरे आप अभी से बनाना start करेंगे. I think you'll be good to go. Then coming to the international relations part. In the international relations again, newspapers suffice. I think there are a lot of articles we have coming every single day on the relations of India with a particular country. तो उस हर article को note करने की बजाय what we can do is एक India USA का page लगा लिया. तो if the security dimension is being taught, तो security dimension में बस एक point डाल दिया उस article का, so that you do not miss the entire issue altogether. It will be one of the points of the India-USA relations, right? So you need not note down every article that is coming on the security aspect और उसके comprehensive बैठ के notes ही बनाए जा रहे हैं हम. Just one point will be sufficient, ताकि जब mains में जाओ तो तुमको याद हो कि security aspect is something that you need to quote also. If there are any doubts till now, you are free to ask. If you are unable to understand something, or you want to understand a different perspective of the same question or anything, feel free to ask, just raise your hand, okay? So we were discussing about the international relation portion of GS2. In that again, as I was telling you, if a particular relation is being asked, for example, India-Africa relation is being asked. So what we can do about it is, again, I used to start it from the historical perspective, कि India and Africa were partners during the decolonization process or anti-apartheid struggle. So that becomes the historical aspect. Even if you're not clear abhi ki kya the historical aspects, but you can understand that historical aspect comes as one point. Point number one. Second is the cultural aspect that will come. The cultural aspects will be the people-to-people ties, medical tourism that is happening. This will come under the cultural ties. Number three will be the economical ties. What kind of trade do we have with a particular country? And what kind of missions are we promoting to increase that trade? What kind of line of credits are we giving to increase that trade? So that is the economical aspect. Fourth comes the security aspect. What are the defense exercises or the defense agreements that we're entering into with that particular country? So you see, now you've already covered 4 different dimensions of the same relation. Otherwise, if you just write about one particular dimension and keep explaining it, it becomes a little monotonous, and I don't think that it fetches a lot of marks unless and until you explain the other dimensions also. Then environmental dimension. I think there is no country in the world which is not working towards the climate change in one or the other way. And India being like at the forefront, so you must not miss this particular aspect. Quote, कि हम climate change के लिए we are collaborating with this country at this platform. Then come the international platforms also, G20 में if you are working with some country or at any other platform you are working, that becomes your 6th point. तो ऐसे करते ही simple knowledge के साथ you have 6 points ready and that's your 250 words का answer. तो इसमें there is no rocket science कि पता नहीं क्या लिखना है, बस इसी तरह से आपको लिखना है, ये 6 points आपको पता है, just have to quote them. And you can even write in the paragraph form. There is no hard and fast rule that points work better or paragraphs में marks नहीं मिलते हैं. It's about the content you write. It's nothing to do with which form you are writing it. Some people are very skeptical about using diagrams, that they must be used or they must not be used, some will say. So the simple formula is do what suits you. If you feel that something can be explained diagrammatically well, explain it. अगर जैसे मैंने criminal justice system के अगर आपको 3 या 4 institutions बताए, so instead of just writing them 1, 2, 3, 4 because it will take this much of your space, तो उससे better है just you make a box and just show it like this 1, 2, 3 and 4 like a flow chart. That becomes a diagram. तो कोई ऐसे मतलब geography की biology की diagram नहीं बना के आनी है वहाँ पे. Because I see a lot of aspirants messaging me on Instagram, मैम ये diagrams कैसे बनानी है, flow charts कैसे बनाने हैं. So it's nothing, जितना भारी word है उतना ही easy है. It's just to explain that point in a little bit better way. So as we're discussing GS2, I'll give you another example how you can use the diagram better. So suppose you're quoting the criminalization of politics. So if you say criminalization of politics is increasing, that is not a very impactful a statement. To make that impactful, what we can do is we can show via graph कि पहले 23 थी, अब 43 हो गई है, उसका increasing trend दिखा दिया. That shows everything. I think वो उस particular diagram में you're explaining your point very well. You're telling that how it has shifted, how it has increased. Because criminalization in politics is increasing is something which anybody can tell you. You adding a little bit of substance or data to it, or telling that you know what's the source of it, I think that is something which will show कि हाँ यार इस तरह से इन्होंने बता रखा है, तो it means they are very well aware that how the trends are changing. And in paper 2, what became really important, I think, in fetching me marks was that I quoted a lot of Supreme Court judgments, and on the top of it, I quoted a lot of committee judgments. For example, जैसे criminal justice system की हम बात कर रहे थे, तो उसमें माधव मेनन कमेटी आ जाती हैं, मालीमात कमेटीज आ जाती हैं. It's fine if you do not know about these names. It's just that when you read about them, just remember कि इनको use किया जा सकता है इस तरह की चीज़ों में. तो पुलिस के लिए प्रकाश सिंह गाइडलाइंस आ जाती हैं. Just mention the name so that you can show that you know about whatever is going around. Similarly, in the criminalization, I've told कि graph से आप कैसे explain कर सकते हैं. So that's pretty much about GS2. It's a very dynamic subject and correlated with the static portion well. Quote the acts, quote the whatever the act is there or the article number is there. So that becomes your data. Data कोई rocket science नहीं है कि यार इसको कितना memorize करें, 65.6% है, कहीं 65.9 ना लिख दें. Data is nothing like that. You just remember कि थोड़ा सा मोटा सा idea हो कि more than 64% if you write, it's fine. It works that way. So you can start your answer with an article number in GS2, or you can start with the particular act, or you can just do with a simple definition. Then in the body, you can diversify your points from whichever angle the question is asked. Then in the conclusion, you can mention, before the conclusion, you can mention about a few steps which are being taken by the government. Then you can give your own suggestions, and then a very optimistic conclusion that a lot of things have been done and some things are there, but we can definitely improve. And in the conclusion, you can quote the Supreme Court guidelines, Supreme Court judgments, or the sustainable development goals that are there to just summarize the answer very well. So having summarized GS2, let's discuss a little bit about the core demand of the answer writing also. There are three things that are very, very important. One is to understand the demand of the question well. And what I mean by that is कि why की जगह where मत लिख के आओ, what की जगह why मत लिख के आओ, and how, what, why, where. Just mark them and know what the examiner is asking. Sometimes we write so beautifully, but we are not answering to the exact question that is being asked. So this becomes very important to know what they are asking. Second thing which is very important is to know what are the parts that are being asked. तो कई बार एक ही question में there are 3 or 4 parts कि the question is कि 4-5 चीजें वो पूछ रखी हैं उसमें. So what we do is कि हम first question को तो पूरा एक page दे देते हैं, आगे के जो 3 parts है उसको थोड़ा. So that is something which we should avoid. हर question को उतनी ही weightage दो, उतना ही space दो, उतना ही time दो. Because if there are 4 subparts, each subpart carries the same amount of marks, right? So अगर उन चारों को answer करोगे, then it will make your answer very holistic. These are very small things, but often forgotten by the aspirants because हम उस flow में जब लिखने लग जाते हैं, we forget that की demand क्या है और क्या-क्या चीजें पूछी हुई हैं. और तीसरी चीज मैंने already बता दी है that diversify your answers and एक ही चीज को explain करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है. And one more thing that becomes very important in every GS paper is quote a number of examples, quote a number of case studies, correlate with the current news. जैसे कि मैंने बताया कि torture का हम अगर point करें कि torture with the convicts is increasing or with the jail inmates is increasing, just mention it by a simple example that is happening. हमारे टाइम पे J. Bennix का case was in news तमिलनाडु में, if I'm not wrong. तो I just wrote, for example, लिख के उसको quote कर दिया. तो मतलब you need not explain the entire example, but you can just quote it like that. Any other case study you have. So basically the point is you assert something, you give a proper reasoning to it, and then you give an example in very, very short, so that it does not consume a lot of space and does not take a lot of time. Now, GS4 will discuss very, very briefly right now because of the shortage of time. So GS4 ethics ka paper hai, but and everybody takes it so lightly. And I think that is a mistake that people make because it has 250 marks ka weightage. The syllabus is a little different from prelims, and I gave an extra attention to this particular subject, and it has fetched me 124 marks. So I believe that it should not be neglected. Because most of the times you'll hear it's very generic, बस generic सी चीजें डालनी होती हैं. But it's always better to be prepared beforehand than to face in the examination itself. Meanwhile, if you have any questions, चाहे मतलब तुम्हें लगे कि बहुत silly है, you can just ask me. We'll have 10-15 minutes का Q&A round last में. So feel free to ask the questions. And अभी भी if you have any doubts, you can just stand up and ask me.
Ma'am, it's quite hard to understand what to read in the newspaper.
I got the question now, thanks.
Ma'am, could you help me a bit because the newspaper has too much vast information and it's really hard to read the entire newspaper. It literally took me 2 hours daily.
Which year are you in right now? You're pursuing your graduation?
No, ma'am, I've graduated.
And you're attempting 2023 exam? Okay. So I think everybody has listened to the question. She's asking what to read in a newspaper. Very relevant question and very confusing for the aspirants, I must say, because at the end, newspaper has a lot of information. So let's start with the editorial page first. So editorial page में whatever is there, that will be majorly used in your mains preparation and prelims में भी points use हो जाएंगे. But mains में भी उस editorial को कैसे पढ़ना है? जैसे one news, there are going to be n number of editorials on a daily basis. The first editorial that you read, give it a little bit of more time. क्योंकि अभी कोई न्यूज़ आई है, it becomes a little difficult to process what are the angles associated. So if it's taking you 2 hours, it is okay because the time will shorten. मुझे भी पहले 2.5 घंटे, 2 घंटे, 1.5 घंटा, 1 घंटा, फिर जाके 45 मिनट्स तक समझ नहीं आया था. तो it is nothing to worry about if you are taking a lot of time. But ये भी important हो जाता है that you do not read irrelevant content, right? So the editorial pages are a must. World वाला news is must. और उसमें भी how you will know again by going to the previous year questions. Unless and until you know कि वो किस तरह का international, अभी मैं I cannot explain you everything कि क्या पढ़ना है और क्या नहीं पढ़ना है. But the previous year questions will tell you कि अगर international relation पे कोई question आता है तो वो किस तरह का आता है. It will mostly be map based कि map पे they'll ask you a few locations, थोड़ा geography का mix करके that this place belongs to this particular country, or if there is something more they are looking into. तो when you read the questions, you will know कि किस तरह का demand है उस particular subject के oriented. तो वर्ल्ड वाले पेज में when you go, scan through the news and just see कि किस किस तरह की चीज़ें जो है वो previous year questions में आ रही हैं या mock test में आ रही हैं. तो these two things are going to help you to know what to read and what not to read. तो कई बार ऐसा हो जाता है कि हम वर्ल्ड का पेज पढ़ लेते हैं, एडिटोरियल्स पढ़ लेते हैं, फर्स्ट पेज पढ़ लेते हैं and we think we're done with it and लास्ट का पढ़ लेते हैं. कई बार बीच में कोई अच्छा आर्टिकल आ जाता है तो वो हेडलाइंस आप पढ़िए, उसमें से आप देखिए कि क्या चीज़ रेलिवेंट है मेरे सिलेबस पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से. जैसे कि मैंने बताया सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप्स में आप सपोज कीजिए कोई न्यूज़ आई है दैट दिस सेल्फ हेल्प ग्रुप डिड दिस और दिस स्टेट हैज टेकन दिस इनिशिएटिव, तो ऑटोमेटिकली इट मीन्स इट इज़ देयर इन द सिलेबस, सो इट बिकम्स इम्पॉर्टेंट. बट हाउ कितना ज़्यादा रेलिवेंट है वो, देन यू जस्ट स्कैन थ्रू द न्यूज़ वंस. एक बार ही आपने पढ़ लिया कि इस पेज पे किस तरह की न्यूज़ आती है, यू विल स्टार्ट अंडरस्टैंडिंग कि कितना रेलिवेंट है उस न्यूज़ का. तो मेरे लिए दैट बिकेम अ पॉइंट दैट आई यूज टू कोट इन द मेंस. प्रीलिम्स के लिए न्यूज़पेपर में से यू कैन मार्क द पॉइंट्स लाइक एक्ट्स कौन से हैं, या इन्वायरमेंट के लिए कुछ बताया है, या साइंस एंड टेक के लिए कुछ बताया है, एंड यू विल हैव टू टेक द हेल्प ऑफ द डेली न्यूज़ एनालिसिस और द मैगजीन्स. और कोई भी मैगजीन आप उठा लो जो भी है, या फिर कोई भी डेली न्यूज़ एनालिसिस आप उठा लो, बट यू विल हैव टू डिग डीपर इनटू फॉर द प्रीलिम्स पोर्शन. मेंस के लिए मैंने बता दिया कि एडिटोरियल्स आर समथिंग दैट आर गोना हेल्प. हेडलाइंस जो फर्स्ट पेज है उसको तो हमने पढ़ना ही है बिकॉज दैट कॉन्स्टिट्यूट्स द बेस ऑफ एवरी न्यूज़ दैट इज बीइंग डिस्कस्ड इन द लेटर पेजेस. सो दिस इज हाउ यू कैन डू द न्यूज़पेपर बिट. अभी एग्जैक्टली आई कैन नॉट टेल यू, नोबडी कैन टेल यू, बट आई थिंक दिस इज द फ्रेमवर्क विच कैन हेल्प यू टू नो कि क्या चीज़ रेलिवेंट है और क्या चीज़ रेलिवेंट नहीं है. राइट? एनी अदर क्वेश्चन बीच में इफ वी हैव? नथिंग. सो
Ma'am, could you please mention the books you followed along with the strategy?
Okay. So for the book list, I think जितने भी टॉपर्स की आपने सुनी होगी मोस्टली सेम रहती है. पहले तो NCERTs. Let's start with the history. Ancient history में RS शर्मा plus the 6th वाली NCERT also I used to study. क्योंकि 6th में it's like our past करके there's the basic NCERT. उसमें से भी other concepts become very clear. And I think that's also very important. Medieval के लिए क्लास 12th की NCERT है हमारी सतीश चंद्रा सर की, एंड उसके साथ 7th की जो NCERT है आर पास्ट 2 करके that I used to refer. Modern history के लिए स्पेक्ट्रम, then comes the polity उसके लिए लक्ष्मीकांत, nothing better than that. Then the geography के लिए again 10th, 11th and 12th की NCERTs and GC Leong. what other आर्ट एंड कल्चर के लिए नितिन सिंघानिया सर की बुक जो है, बट उसको भी ऐसे ग्लांस किया था मैंने. नॉट रीडिंग एवरी चैप्टर बिकम्स इम्पॉर्टेंट. तो वो पता लगेगा जब प्रीवियस क्वेश्चंस में देखोगे कि डांस फॉर्म्स ज़्यादा पूछे हैं या आर्किटेक्ट पे ज़्यादा क्वेश्चन है, तो दोज चैप्टर्स बिकम मोर रेलिवेंट. एंड एक क्लास 11th की NCERT है फाइन आर्ट्स की, तो दैट आई रेफर्ड अलॉन्ग विद दैट. इकोनॉमिक्स की NCERTs become very important and I feel that is very less stressed upon also. So we do not talk a lot about the economics की NCERT, but I'll suggest that we should read them. Class 11th and 12th की macro economics की, 12th की और 11th की जो basic book है. So that's a very beautifully written book and I think it explains so many concepts about economics. And if you are planning to take sociology, तो फिर उनकी NCERTs भी important हो जाती हैं. पॉलिटी के लिए एक पॉलिटिकल थ्योरी की NCERT है क्लास 11th की, वो ज़रूरी है. दीज आर द बेसिक बुक्स आई एम रेफरिंग. और इसके ऊपर बहुत सारी और मेहनत जाती है जो करंट अफेयर्स से आपका आएगा, material सारा, and whatever you dig deeper into the current affairs, that gets added. Then if you feel that some topic is not being discussed very nicely in the book, then just Google it. आप कोई भी topic लिख के उसके आगे UPSC लिख दीजिए. I think you'll get enough material. So go to through 2 or 3 जो भी websites है या जो भी news articles हैं उस particular question के pertaining, and then you can just read more about that particular topic, right? If I missed some subject, you can tell me. I'll tell you the book that I referred. Ethics के लिए, okay, I'll discuss it in brief. तो उसमें books भी I'll discuss. There was another question. हाँ जी.
I have 2 years to give attempt for UPSC. So what I can do for option preparation right now?
What is your option?
PSI.
PSIR. So I am a sociology optional student. So I'll not go into the books of the PSIR. But what I can tell you is it's a good time to start preparing for the optional. तो जो भी आपकी basic किताबें हैं आप वो ले आइए. जो भी notes आप refer कर रहे हैं तो try understanding the thinkers really well, because I know PSIR maybe there are a lot of thinkers. So abhi you have time, try understanding them from the basic books, from the notes that you have. उसको आप हर रोज थोड़ा time दीजिए. 3 to 4 hours a day also works abhi. And then when the prelims will come, then you can shorten the time, or you can completely focus on the prelims, and after prelims again you can pick. So the basic idea is that before you start preparing solely for the prelims, you should have a conceptual clarity of all the topics mentioned in the syllabus, and if possible you can make your own short notes also, so that it's good to revise after the prelims. You do not have to search for a lot of material. So optional means like there are so many sources. There's nothing at one source. तो उस सब को पढ़ने के बाद the kind of notes that you come with after reading all of them, I think abhi you have 2 years, you can come with that thing. Read a lot, then just comprehensively prepare your own notes, and prelims ke baad you can revise all those notes in one go. Okay? So, yes. तो वो जो 15 minutes का Q&A session है ना, तो वो अभी कर लेते हैं. So just ask me the questions, and उसके बाद ethics का I'll briefly discuss. Okay? Yeah.
मैम कुछ भी टॉपिक पढ़ते हैं मैम कॉन्फिडेंस नहीं आता, पढ़ने के बाद आंसर लिखने का मन नहीं करता.
That's a very good question. I think nothing to laugh about, and we've been through the same stage, and let's clap for him that he's been asking this question at the first place. Yeah, that is so true. कि कुछ भी हम पढ़ते हैं हमें आंसर लिखने का मन नहीं करता, because we think that we are not writing good enough. So first thing is कि we'll have to start with however low we start. अगर कभी-कभी ऐसा भी हो जाता था कि आंसर मेरे से भी नहीं लिखा जाता था, so keep the book in your front, keep the material in your front, and उसके थ्रू आप देख के ही आंसर लिखो. सबसे first thing to break that inhibition is that just write the answer, चाहे वो देख के ही लिख रहे हो. जब एक बार देख के लिखोगे ना और लगेगा कि आंसर अच्छा सा लग रहा है, it's taking a good shape. Second time, close the book 5-6 days later, same topic पे you write the answer. You've written the answer once from the book itself or from the material itself. Then you know that what is to be written. Then 5 days later, you can write the same answer again and break that inhibition once. And then slowly and slowly, 2-3 answers a day करके, you reach to a point where you can write the full mock test. If you start giving the full test abhi se, you will not feel like attempting it. Because obviously it requires a lot of knowledge, a lot of diversity. So start with writing 2-3 answers, and to break that inhibition, I think the best thing is that you just see and then write. And make it a point ki likhna hi hai. So I used to keep the targets like that. If I do not write the answer, I'll miss this thing, I'll not get this thing. So I had my favorite cream biscuits. So in the morning I had kept them. अगर answer लिखा या अगर इतने बजे उठे तभी मिलेगी वो चीज़. So keep these incentives for you. कि अगर if I'm not doing this thing, I'm letting go of something which I really want. So these kind of things mentally only work, because this is a mental inhibition that we all have. We are too scared. And this the other thing that can work is do not show your answer to anybody in the initial stages. For example, you're just starting writing the answer. Our only fear is that whoever reads the answer, he or she is going to think that I'm not worth it. So what I did was that I used to self-evaluate my answer. Toppers की answer sheets available है, सब कुछ आपको पता है कि किस तरह से लिखना है, तो उनमें से आप देखिए और अपना answer self-evaluate कर लीजिए. That fear will vanish that somebody else is going to think less of us. सो इट्स बेटर कि हम अपने तक रखें, 1-2 महीना यू स्पेंड योर सेल्फ डेली बेसिस पे, एंड देन आई थिंक द इनहिबिशन जब थोड़ी कम हो जाएगी देन यू आर गुड टू गो.
मेरा क्वेश्चन है कि क्लास में पढ़ने के बाद प्रिंटर बुक्स हो या एनसीईआरटी बुक्स हो वो पढ़ने लगी तो सर मैम क्लास में पढ़ने लगा तो फिजिक्स के जो क्वेश्चन थे वो भी सॉल्व हो गया. क्या फिर से या एनसीईआरटी हो या वैसे स्टैंडर्ड बुक्स हो तो पढ़ने लगी?
मेरे हिसाब से दोनों चीज़ें ही ज़रूरी हो जाती हैं. तो अगर आपका प्रीवियस के क्वेश्चन सॉल्व हो भी रहे हैं, देयर इज़ नथिंग रॉन्ग. आई थिंक इट एडेड टू माई कॉन्फिडेंस. अगर आप कोई नोट्स पढ़ के फिर दोबारा से बेसिक बुक पे जा रहे हैं, आई थिंक इट एड्स टू योर कॉन्फिडेंस कि इस बेसिक बुक में से आई हैव कवर्ड अ लॉट ऑफ पोर्शन ऑलरेडी. तो आई डोंट अंडरस्टैंड द कॉन्सेप्ट कि वो मन नहीं कर रहा है उसको पढ़ने का बिकॉज क्वेश्चन सॉल्व हो रहे हैं. बिकॉज एट द एंड दिस इज इनएविटेबल. सो इफ यू प्रिपेयर योर माइंड लाइक कि ये करना ही है, स्टैंडर्ड बुक साथ में करनी है, देखनी ही है, तो यू देयर इज नथिंग लाइक अ सेकंड थॉट टू इट. मतलब एग्जैक्टली क्या प्रॉब्लम आ रही है आपको, मन क्यों नहीं कर रहा है? I think in this exam, what is important is to repeat the same thing again and again. And that is something which is very tiring from my experience. बार-बार same चीज़ पढ़ना, but that is something which is required. उसको आप standard book में से same चीज़ पढ़ेंगे, take it as a confidence booster that I have already covered this thing, my concepts are clear, the book is also talking about the same thing, so it means that I am on the right path, right? In this exam, you cannot be bored of reading the same thing again and again because you have to revise multiple times. The more you revise, the better it gets. And I was not pro at it. जब paper postpone हो गया था, I was literally crying that I'll have to go through the same material again. But then there's no other way of doing it, and you'll have to put your mind into that trouble. Okay?
स्टार्टिंग से 5-6 मंथ से हिस्ट्री का कोई कनेक्शन नहीं रहा है, मीन्स ग्रेजुएशन में भी और उससे पहले भी. तो अगर अब मैं हिस्ट्री ऑप्शनल लेती हूँ तो ये इफेक्ट करेगा या नहीं, क्योंकि अब मुझे इंटरेस्टिंग लग रहा है, मैं पढ़ रही हूँ.
So let me give my example. 4 साल से सिर्फ कंप्यूटर साइंस इंजीनियरिंग पढ़ा था, सोशियोलॉजी का एस भी नहीं आता था. So I took sociology as an optional. I think what determines your optional is the interest you have, the kind of material which is available. If there's good material available, the syllabus is short and comprehensive. That should be the determinant, not that you have not read something before. So I think that shouldn't be very much thing to worry about. Yeah.
मैम आपको नोट्स कैसे बनाने चाहिए? शॉर्ट नोट्स और नोट्स?
अभी मैंने थोड़ी देर पहले नोट मेकिंग पे जो चीज़ बोली, can any one of you explain it to him if somebody has listened like really cautiously? Nobody? Very unenthusiastic class. नहीं, फर्स्ट टाइम आस्किंग दी उसका क्वेश्चन भी तो आंसर होना चाहिए ना, देन आई विल टेक योर क्वेश्चन. तो अभी मैंने बताया था ना कि नोट्स को आप आंसर फॉर्मेट में ही बना लीजिए, एज इन कि जैसे कोई आर्टिकल आप पढ़ रहे हैं. प्रीलिम्स के लिए आई डिड नॉट मेक एक्स्ट्रा नोट्स ज़्यादा, थोड़ा बहुत डेली. Standard books I never used to make notes. Some people do, but I felt that it was so time consuming, so I utilized different color pens. तो first time if I am doing एक कलर के पेन से मैंने कर दिया मार्क. Second time I am doing उसको Q लिख लिया कि ये prelims के लिए ज़रूरी है. Mains के लिए I used to write M. So I never made the notes, so not the best person to tell you about the notes from the standard books. I felt that it was not very relevant to note down the same thing that has been so beautifully mentioned in the book. Okay? 2 more questions. ठीक है, उसके बाद मेरी Instagram ID पे आप लोग मुझे मैसेज कर देना. I take time and I reply. ठीक है? Yes. This side one and that side one. Yeah, please you can ask.
नेक्स्ट टाइम इसका रीडिंग नहीं है, तो मैम वो न्यूज़पेपर पढ़ें या ना पढ़ें? मैम नेक्स्ट टाइम मैं क्लियर इसका रीडिंग.
Very good question from you. I think newspaper तो जितनी जल्दी पढ़ना स्टार्ट कर दे उतना जल्दी अच्छा है, because it makes your base very strong. So I started reading the newspaper from the second year of my college, though I started serious preparation in the 4th year. So it shouldn't be like कि 1 साल पहले के current affairs आते तो उससे पहले newspaper ना पढ़ें. Because to understand a newspaper also you need to give it a lot of time. So it's better, the earlier you start, the better it is. Yes.
My question is about the edition of books. Like I am a foundation class student, and will get examined in 024. And suppose I buy a book today on the
It's okay. मेरी इतनी सारी books थी, editions keep coming. It's okay. The material remains same.
stick to the earlier one, or
You can stick to any, just keep the 2 books in front and see if there are extra chapters. You can just get photo-stated that particular chapter that's coming in the new edition. Otherwise, there's nothing like the old edition is bad or the good edition is good. I never used to think about these things a lot. Whatever book I have, it's good to go. If there is something very important being added in the next edition, just get it photo-stated from a friend. Okay? So I think that's the last question we have.
मैम मेरा मुझे आपको UPSC क्रैक करने में 2 अटैम्प्ट लगा, आई मीन फर्स्ट एंड सेकंड, तो मैम सेकंड अटैम्प्ट में निकला आपका, फर्स्ट अटैम्प्ट में आप कहाँ लैग करके, क्योंकि फर्स्ट अटैम्प्ट में नहीं निकल पाया.
Okay. So I think that's the last question, and I'll try to answer it a little bit in detail also. So you can add on to the question if you have.
इसमें ये क्वेश्चन था.
Ma'am, first of all, your smile is very pretty.
Go ahead.
Ma'am, is any app in mobile which helpful for UPSC? When we travel in metro and anything, we have mobile to learn.
वो एक G करके ना गूगल का ऑप्शन आता है. मैं तो वही करती थी जब भी मेरा मन करता था.
Ma'am, any particular app?
I never was a. मेरे पास एक वो स्मार्टर टाइम करके ऐप होती थी अपना टाइम मैनेज करने के लिए. Otherwise, I used to have Google and the only thing. Not the best person to answer that question, app wala question. Okay, did not follow any app. Your question was what I lagged in the first attempt. So 3-4 things I lagged. Revision. I did not focus a lot on the revision. Second thing, mock papers. Did not focus a lot on analyzing the mock paper once I attempted. Third thing that I lacked was reading the syllabus again and again. I'll say mains ke liye bhi I was lacking in my first attempt if I had cleared, because I had not gone through the main syllabus once. So these were the 3 things that I feel that I lacked the most. And the fourth thing was my own on-day confidence. So it's very important to enter the examination hall with self-confidence. If you do not trust your strategy and your preparation, I think the exam is going to torture you like anything when you're sitting in the exam. So if you do not know some questions in the first go, it is fine. Just tell yourself that everybody here is come with the same amount of preparation as you have. If you are putting your best efforts, everybody is on the same ground and उसी में से ही बच्चे निकलने हैं आगे. कुछ ऐसा नहीं है कि there's a cut off. तभी UPSC में there's no minimum number of marks that you need to score, right? Cut off changes every year because of the same reason. Because if the toughness of the exam is changing, it means less people are able to go to that level of marks. So it's okay. So that also needs to be kept into mind. That your confidence, you must enter with full confidence. Just remind yourself about the things you have read instead of the things that you have left. So when you give the exam, this thing also becomes very important. And now I'll briefly discuss GS4. This session was mostly, I had planned it according to the GS2, but some pointers I'll give you. GS4 also. The GS4 mein keywords become very important. Entire syllabus mein every keyword becomes very, very important. Know the difference between different keywords very well. Transparency, accountability, integrity, honesty. These things have very different meanings, and if the question is being asked on integrity and if the question is being asked on honesty, it has a different demand, and you can answer to the demand only when you know what that question is asking. So the keywords become important. For the books, I refer to lexicon in G. Subbarao sir's book, but उसमें भी not comprehensive. इतनी मोटी किताब है वो सारी नहीं पढ़ सकते हैं. So only the relevant portions. So when you see the syllabus, you will know that this thing has been explained in detail and will read that thing. And one more source that helped me a lot in GS2 and GS4 was the second ARC reports. I think very, very good written summary where you can just go and quote that thing in the exam directly. So second ARC में we have RTI पे एक particular chapter report. Then we have citizen-centric administration, e-governance, ethics in governance. So these are some of the reports जिनकी summary if you read, you can quote them in the exam directly, and most of the GS2 and GS4 syllabus gets covered from these reports. So just take the summary and read it once. You will know that what kind of answers you can write. Similarly, ethics में case studies के perspective से, so case studies में what becomes important is to make your answer sound ethical. And how will it do that? When you incorporate the keywords that are mentioned in the syllabus. and you prove that the approach that you are taking is fitting into the demands of those keywords also. For example, if there's a question on the child labor aspect, or if they give you a scenario where you find a child who is working in the fields or working at a shop, then I think that in the introduction, what becomes important is also to mention the constitutional angle of it. In the ethics also, you can quote a lot from GS2, and in GS2, you can quote a lot from ethics. So I used to start my answer of that case study with article 23 or 24, जो भी हमारा है, और उसके बाद quote कर दिया, child labor के बारे में थोड़ा सा introduction दे दिया, mention the stakeholders that are involved in that particular case study, then mention all the approaches if they are asking about different approaches. Sometimes we just mention our approach, what is the most ethical one. But you need to mention all the 4 or 5 approaches that can be taken, however unethical they may be. And then tell that this one is unethical, this one is ethical. That shows that you're aware of the options that exist, but you're consciously making a choice to go with the ethical option. And to explain that, you need to have take the base from the constitution. Whatever is there in the constitution is ethical, and if you take the points from that, that makes your answer ethical. Analyze it from the keywords perspective, that this is showcasing the quality of honesty, this is showcasing the quality of transparency, accountability, explain kar diya, and then a particular conclusion, that also forward looking and optimistic conclusion. Right? So that's it from my side. I hope you liked the session, and I really enjoyed the interaction.
That was really value addition. Hope you all got the answers to your question, guys. Okay, so let's all get up and thanks Gamini for coming and sparing time for you all. Thank you so much for coming and making this event happen. We wish you all the best. Thank you so much. And thank you to our students for being good audience. Thank you so much. Thank you.